Okay, so we all know that feeling, right? You know
Yeah.
that desperate need for coffee in the morning? Well, get this. Today, we're diving deep into a coffee scene that is exploding, and it's probably not where you'd think.
Yeah, you don't exactly think of India and think coffee, do you? But honestly, it might just be the next coffee superpower. And
What?
that's what we're going to get into today.
Yeah, I'll admit, when I first heard about this, I was a bit skeptical. I mean, India,
Yeah.
coffee. I always think of chai, right?
Right.
But then I saw this statistic and I was like, okay, hold on a second. 44% of Indians are now regularly drinking coffee.
It's a huge number.
I mean, that's almost half the country.
Yeah.
So, what's causing this whole coffee craze?
So for years, coffee in India was kind of like the second fiddle to tea. You know what I mean?
Right.
But things are changing, and it's really the younger generations that are pushing this change. They're embracing this whole coffee culture. You see all these cafes and these specialty roasts, and people are really starting to appreciate the art of making coffee.
Yeah. It reminds me of that whole explosion we saw with craft beer a few years back. But now, instead of hops and barley, it's all about the beans. But here's what's really interesting to me. There's this company, Frank, and they're basically making a massive bet on the future of coffee in India.
Yeah.
You could almost say they're like the Tesla of coffee makers, you know?
It's a great analogy, and what Frank has realized is that this isn't some fad. It's a real shift. In just a couple of years, venture capital investment in these specialty coffee chains in India has gone from something like $22 million dollars to $100 million.
Oh,
dollars.
wow, that's serious money.
Yeah.
So we're really talking about a flood of cash going into this whole coffee scene. But what I don't quite get is how can any company, even a company as big as Franca, deal with a market that's as diverse as India? I mean, it's not really known for a one-size-fits-all kind of approach.
Right, right. And that's where Franca's one Franca idea comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about taking a product that's worked somewhere else in the world and saying, here you go, India.
Right.
It's about understanding the needs in India and adapting to meet them. I guess you could say it's like high-tech meets traditional Indian flavors.
So are you saying they're actually making these machines to handle everything from like the traditional, strong filter coffee to maybe something like a chai latte?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that they've got is this technology they call IQ Flow. And what that does is it basically makes sure you get consistent quality no matter what you're making. So imagine a machine, one machine, that can make a perfect South Indian filter coffee
Wow.
and then switch over and make you a cortado. It's pretty impressive.
That is impressive. It really sounds like they're combining cutting edge technology with a real understanding of what Indian people want in their cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know they've got these machines, they've got a plan, but how are they actually going to make this work? I mean, what's the game plan for pulling off such an ambitious project in India?
Well, Frank has got this 5-year roadmap that's pretty aggressive. The first thing they're doing is setting up these, they call experience centers in all the big cities in India.
Oh, okay.
So think about it like a showroom, but interactive.
Yeah.
You can go in there and try the machines, taste different coffees.
Oh, I like the sound of free coffee.
It's a good way to show what they can do,
Yeah.
let people actually experience it.
That's clever. Let people try before they buy, right?
Yeah.
But India is a country where things move fast, especially when it comes to chai. So can Franca really keep up? I mean, can their machines handle that kind of speed?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Their machines are built for high volume. So those busy cafes, let's say in Mumbai or Delhi, they can crank out those coffees no problem. Plus, they're putting a lot of effort into their supply chain, making sure that spare parts are readily available. There's always someone to call for help if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Basically, they're trying to avoid any coffee breakdowns.
Smart move. It sounds like they've got the practical stuff figured out, but what about the people? Are they just sending over a bunch of machines and saying, good luck?
No, not at all. They're actually investing quite a bit in training the baristas and the owners of these cafes. They're bringing in experts from all over the world to teach all sorts of things, from how to pick the right beans, all the way to how to make those fancy latte art designs. And they even have these programs that expose the trainees to all the latest trends in coffee from around the world.
It's like they're creating a whole coffee ecosystem.
That's a good way to put it.
That's really impressive. But let's go back to this idea of India becoming a coffee superpower. Because a big claim, I mean, can they really go head to head with, say, Colombia or Ethiopia? I mean, those countries, they've got such a long history with coffee.
It's a good question. And what makes this so interesting is that India's approach to coffee is this unique blend of tradition and, modern ideas. So while they are embracing these global trends, they're also holding on to their own unique coffee heritage, which is really cool.
Right, because you don't really see many people in India walking around with those giant iced coffees like it's some kind of fashion statement, right?
And not yet. But what's exciting is that India is developing its own coffee identity. They're not just copying what other countries are doing. They're experimenting, they're innovating, and they're finding their own place in the world of coffee.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how this could all play out. But before we get ahead of ourselves and start dreaming of masala chai lattes on every street corner, let's take a step back. If India's coffee consumption continues to grow at this pace, what's that going to mean for the coffee market as a whole? I mean, this isn't just about a few more cafes in Bangalore, right?
You're absolutely right. This has implications for global economics, supply chains, and yeah, maybe even the price of your morning coffee.
Whoa, now that's something to think about. So to sum things up, India's coffee scene is on fire right now, and Franke is right in the middle of it, fanning those flames. The big question is this just a local trend? Or is it something that could potentially shake up the entire coffee industry? That's what we're going to be exploring as we go deeper into this topic.
So, welcome back to our deep dive into India's coffee revolution.
I'm really starting to think that Franca might be onto something here, you
Mhm.
know? Their 5-year plan, it sounds like a real recipe for success.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about their experience centers, their focus on speed, efficiency, which is so key in India, especially when we're talking about chai, right?
Right.
And they're even making sure the supply chain is solid.
Yeah.
But what I'm really curious about, and we touched on this a little bit before, is the barista training.
Ah,
What are they doing to really elevate that coffee experience?
that's a great question. And this is where Franke's global expertise really comes into play. They're not just teaching baristas how to, work their fancy machines.
Right.
They're introducing them to a whole world of coffee.
So it's more than just latte art. We're talking about like the whole coffee experience.
Oh, much more. Franke is bringing in coffee experts from all over the world. These are like renowned experts to lead workshops on everything from like how to pick the right beans to roasting, all the way to these really advanced brewing techniques. And they're even teaching them about where different coffees come from, like what makes a Kenyan coffee different from an Ethiopian coffee.
It's like a coffee university
It is. It is.
right in the heart of India.
Exactly.
That's amazing. I mean, just imagine a barista, someone from a small town in India, having the chance to learn from, let's say, a master coffee roaster from Italy.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
That's a game changer. But what I find really interesting is that Franke isn't just focusing on those high-end coffee shops, the fancy ones.
Yeah.
They're also reaching out to those smaller, independent coffee stalls,
Yeah.
which are such a big part of the culture in India, right?
Right. You see them everywhere. And Franke realizes that those places are the backbone of the Indian coffee scene.
Right.
So by empowering these small businesses, giving them knowledge, giving them skills, they're helping to raise the quality of coffee everywhere, from the street corner to the fancy cafe.
Now that's what I call a holistic approach.
It is.
But let's get back to this whole coffee superpower idea for a minute because it's a really exciting idea.
Yeah.
But can they really compete on a global scale? I mean, there are some really big players out there.
That's a good point. And India does face some challenges. They're actually the sixth largest coffee producer in the world, but most of that coffee ends up being exported.
Okay.
So while Indians are drinking more coffee than ever, they're not necessarily drinking Indian coffee.
Wait, so they're growing all this coffee but not drinking it themselves?
Yeah, it's a little strange, right?
That doesn't make sense. Why not, enjoy what they're growing?
Well, there are a few reasons for that.
Yeah.
Taste is a big one. A lot of Indians just prefer the taste of certain imported coffees, like maybe Colombian or Brazilian beans.
Okay, I get that. Taste is subjective.
Yeah.
But are there other reasons? Maybe more practical reasons?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the big hurdles is consistency.
Okay.
The quality of Indian coffee beans can vary a lot, which makes it hard to make a really good cup of coffee consistently. And if you want to build a global brand, consistency is crucial.
So if India wants to be a real player in the coffee world, they need to step up their game when it comes to the quality of their beans, right?
Yeah, the quality and how those beans are processed.
Makes sense. So we've got the beans, we've got the technology, we've got the training, but is there anything else missing from this coffee superpower recipe? What else do they need?
Well, there's one thing that's often overlooked, and that's marketing
Oh, right, marketing.
and branding.
Yeah.
Right now, Indian coffee, it just doesn't have that same global recognition as, say, a Colombian coffee or an Ethiopian coffee.
Yeah, it's true. You think of Colombian coffee, and you picture those lush green mountains and you think of the culture and those rich aromatic beans. But what do you think of when you think of Indian coffee?
Yeah, and that's the challenge. India needs to create a strong brand identity for its coffee.
Okay.
They need to tell their story. Highlight those unique flavors they've got, the traditions. They need to make people feel something when they think about Indian coffee.
So it's not just about making great coffee, it's about creating a story, creating a brand that people will love.
Exactly. India needs to find a way to stand out in this really crowded global market.
Mhm.
They need to show what makes their coffee special, what makes it different. And to do that, they need to be creative. They need to innovate.
Okay, so we've got bean quality, technology, training, marketing. Anything else? Is there anything else missing from this recipe?
Well, there's one more thing that's absolutely essential in today's world, and that's sustainability.
Oh, right. We can't talk about the future of coffee without talking about the environment, right?
Exactly. And consumers are becoming more and more aware of these issues. So if India really wants to be a coffee superpower, they need to show the world that they're committed to doing things the right way, both for the environment and for the people who grow the coffee.
So it's not just about producing more coffee, it's about producing better coffee. Coffee that's good for the planet, good for the farmers.
You got it. Sustainability isn't just a trend, it's something people really care about.
I see what you mean. So it sounds like India is moving in the right direction, both in terms of producing high quality coffee, but also making sure that it's sustainable. But if we zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture, what does all of this mean for the average coffee drinker? Someone like me who just enjoys a good cup of coffee in the morning. What does this all mean for them?
Well, for one thing, it means the coffee world's getting a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
New countries are coming into the market, challenging the way things have always been done and bringing new flavors to the table.
So we're not stuck with the same old coffee choices anymore.
Not at all. And that's good news for everyone. More competition, more innovation, better quality, more choices. It's a win-win.
That's great. So next time I'm at my local coffee shop, maybe I should ask about Indian coffee.
Definitely.
Try a single origin pour over from, I don't know, somewhere in the hills of Karnataka.
Why not? Be adventurous, try new things, enjoy the journey.
Okay, I'm sold.
Hmm.
I'm on a mission to find the perfect cup of Indian coffee. So thanks for taking us on this amazing deep dive. It's really opened my eyes to a whole new world of coffee.
My pleasure. It's always exciting to explore the world of coffee, and India is a country that's just getting started. Who knows, maybe in a few years, Indian coffee will be just as popular as Colombian or Ethiopian.
So welcome back to the deep dive.
Always a pleasure to be here.
I've been thinking as we've been going through this whole Indian coffee revolution thing, it kind of reminds me of what happened with craft beer a while back.
Yeah.
Remember when beer was just, beer, and then
Yeah.
suddenly you had all these
Well, yeah, I remember that.
microbreweries popping up and all these different flavors.
Exactly.
It seems like a similar thing is happening with coffee in India,
Yeah, it really does.
where people are, moving beyond the instant stuff and really starting to appreciate, the good stuff, the quality, where it comes from.
I think that's a great comparison.
Hmm.
And, just like with craft beer, where people were willing to pay more for something special, something with a story.
Right, exactly.
It seems like the same thing is happening with coffee in India.
Yeah, people are looking for that experience, that craft, that attention to detail.
And they're willing to pay for it.
Exactly. And it's interesting, with craft beer, we saw a lot of breweries using local ingredients, highlighting what their region had to offer.
Absolutely.
And now we're seeing the same thing with coffee in India, this focus on, what is it called, single origin.
Yeah, single origin coffee.
Okay, hold on. I need a little help here.
Sir.
What exactly does single origin mean when it comes to coffee?
So single origin just means that the coffee beans, they all come from one specific place. Like it could be a specific farm, a region, a country.
Oh, okay. I see.
And this is really important for India because India has so many different regions where coffee is grown.
Mm-hmm.
Each region has its own unique climate, soil, all of that, which means each region can produce a coffee that tastes completely different.
Wow. So you're telling me that different parts of India can have their own, signature coffee flavor?
Exactly. Think of it like wine.
Okay.
The terroir, the environment where the grapes are grown, it affects the flavor of the wine.
Right, right.
It's the same with coffee. The soil, the climate, the altitude, all of those things influence the flavor of the beans.
This is amazing. So India has all this potential to produce these unique, incredible coffees. But can they really compete with the big guys, the Colombias, the Ethiopias of the world? How do they break into that market and convince people to give Indian coffee a try?
It's definitely a challenge. And one of the things India has to overcome is its reputation.
That-
For a long time, Indian coffee was associated with Robusta beans,
Okay.
which are mostly used for instant coffee,
Yeah.
which doesn't have the best reputation,
Right, right.
So they need to change that perception. They need to show the world that they also grow amazing Arabica beans, which are known for their flavor and quality.
So it's like they need a marketing makeover?
Exactly. They need to tell their story.
Yeah.
They need to highlight their history with coffee, their commitment to quality, and their focus on sustainability. Basically, they need to create a brand that gets people excited about Indian coffee.
Yeah, it's like they need to create this whole new image for Indian coffee, something that captures people's imaginations and makes them say, I gotta try that.
Exactly. And it's also about getting their coffee into the right hands,
Mm.
like influencers, coffee experts, the people who can really spread the word.
Yeah, the tastemakers.
Right. Get it featured in those trendy coffee shops, on the coffee blogs. They need to generate some buzz, get people talking about it.
Makes sense. But, we can't forget about the elephant in the room.
Right.
Sustainability. We talked about it earlier, but it's such a big deal these days, especially for people who care about the environment.
Right. And it's something Indian coffee producers are taking seriously. A lot of them are switching to organic farming methods, so less pesticides, less fertilizers, and they're focusing on things like water conservation, protecting biodiversity.
But how can we be sure that it's not just, marketing hype? How do we know they're really doing what they say they're doing?
That's where certifications come in. You've probably seen those logos on coffee bags, things like Fair Trade, Rainforest Alliance.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Those organizations have really strict standards when it comes to the environment, social responsibility, all of that. So when you see those logos, you know that the coffee has been produced in a responsible way.
So it's not just greenwashing, there's real substance behind it.
Right. And there's also this growing movement towards direct trade, where the coffee roasters work directly with the farmers. Cut out the middleman. That way, the farmers get a fairer price for their coffee, and they have more control over the whole process.
So it sounds like India is doing a lot of things right. They're producing high quality coffee, they're focused on sustainability. But if we zoom out a bit, what does this all mean for the average coffee drinker, someone like me who, just wants a good cup of coffee in the morning?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that the world of coffee is getting a lot more diverse and a lot more exciting.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
We're not just limited to the same old coffee origins anymore. There are new players emerging, new flavors to explore, and that's great for everyone. More competition leads to more innovation, better quality, more choices.
I love that. So next time I'm at my local coffee shop, I should be asking about Indian coffee.
Absolutely. Be adventurous. Try something new.
Maybe a single origin pour over from, I don't know, the hills of Karnataka.
Sounds delicious.
Okay, I'm on a mission to find that perfect cup of Indian coffee.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Thanks for taking us on this journey, this deep dive. It's been fascinating, and honestly, it's changed the way I think about coffee.
My pleasure. It's always exciting to see what's happening in the world of coffee, and India is a country that's just getting started. Who knows, maybe in a few years, Indian coffee will be just as popular as Colombian or Ethiopian.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. We've explored India's booming coffee scene, from the rise of specialty coffee culture to the innovative strategies of companies like Franke. We've uncovered the challenges and opportunities facing Indian coffee producers as they try to make their mark on the global stage. And most importantly, we've learned that the world of coffee is constantly evolving, with new flavors and stories waiting to be discovered. So keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep that coffee brewing.